Yeah, guy. Yeah, friggin' guy. It is Tuesday morning. It's right around 8 o'clock in the morning here in Southern California. David Lee Scales, Scott Bass with you here. We're talking surf, talking all things surf on Spit, the Spit podcast. And David, we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. The Lahaina situation, of course, the WCT WSL event at Chopue in Tahiti. By the way, do you pronounce it Teahopu?
No, I know I should, but it's just so it comes out worse than when I just give up and just say Chopue.
Yeah. And, a lot of other stuff going on in the surf world. Good morning, David.
Good morning to you. I mean, I woke up to actually very good news that I did not expect to get this morning, and
Oh,
that is that the surfers, the Australian surfers with three Indonesian crew who were missing, they were on a boat missing in Indonesia, were found overnight.
yeah.
So that news story, we can get into it if you want, since it's the latest breaking news, or we could save it for later. But when I went to sleep, there were four surfers and the three Indonesian crew missing.
Yeah. No, let's get into it. I mean, that's a breaking news story. So, six
You
out of
don't,
seven passengers on board this missing Indonesian surf boat have been found, according to the internet and Instagram and the people involved. One Indonesian crew member still not confirmed rescued. They're still searching for him. But these surfers, Australians, and a couple of Indonesian guys were found floating in the water, drifting at sea. They were found by their friends, according to Instagram, Ben and Ethan and their Czechoslovakian surf guide Jacob. And those three guys embarked on this search mission early in the morning with the same captain and deckhand were on the same vessel, which experienced this adverse weather. So the captain and the crewman, along with Ben and Ethan, they saved these eight Australians. And wow, what a gnarly thing, man, to be lost at sea like that. These guys are true heroes for keeping the search going during pretty bad weather. And one guy, Elliot, David, paddled, just said, look, I'm going to paddle for help. And
help. Yeah.
got on a surfboard and paddled, just saw some land and just started paddling. And they have found him as well. He's been dropped off at a Nias surf camp. He was found by some fishermen off of Nias. These guys are safe. There's just one, sadly. Hopefully they find this local Indo guy who's obviously one of the crew members of the boat. This is gnarly, man. Like every time I go to Indo and I get on that boat in Padang and I go across, there's always that chance, like this isn't the first time this has happened. This isn't like
Yeah.
this happens, probably, I don't know if it's once a season, but you know,
Well,
it
so
happens.
there was four Australians. They were there for a 30th birthday, and
Why
they
does it
were
say
like,
eight Australians on here? I don't get,
yeah,
I don't know.
I
Sorry.
don't know. The original story was four Australians on the boat, and
Yeah.
there's three Indonesian crew, and they were there celebrating a 30th birthday for one within that group. And so yeah, they were headed from Nias to uh, Penang, Penang.
Padang.
Um,
I don't know.
what's that?
Padang.
Um, and they ran into a storm essentially. So was the boat capsized? Did you ever get
A
definite?
lot of the nitty gritty of it I looked into. I couldn't figure it out. Um, because I couldn't figure out if the boat that they were rescuing people with was the same boat that got,
No,
yeah,
no, it wasn't. But
but it
ultimately,
was the same crew
they,
members that were
they
then
were
got on a
floating
different boat.
they were floating on surfboards. So whatever went wrong, they all had their surfboards. They actually had life jackets on the boat as well, and food and water. So with whatever happened, they decided to eject and be on their surfboards instead, or the boat capsized and they were on their surfboards. But that is ultimately where were all found. So we went to sleep last night, and it's like, oh my gosh, like you said, this could happen to anybody. These boats are going all the time, and also, I don't know. From what I've read, is there's varying levels of boat captains essentially, and they don't have the highest level of regimented regulation that maybe we would have in Southern California or wherever else. And so this is kind of a real threat. This is a real concern, and you need to kind of vet that a little bit. And so yeah, I just felt like reading that story, going to sleep, I'm like, the chances are low of these people being caught, or if they are found, how many of them will be found. And so to wake up to the news that all but one have been found, I think is a pretty remarkable statistic. So
Well, here's another way to do this or to think about this is that because those boats that are shuttling surfers, and like I said, 99.9% of the time you're fine. But you do want to be prepared if something, a big storm, something goes wrong. And somebody brought up something on social media, which I thought was really smart, which is just invest in a little GPS tracker. It's like the
Mm.
cost of a set of fins. For like $89, you can get a really good Garmin GPS tracker, and you just keep that on your person. And if God forbid you go overboard, that's like boom. They're just like, oh yeah, beep beep. There's a beacon going the whole time. Like I think that's. I'm not a super techie guy, but that seems like a simple solution to kind of ease some of the anxiety.
Yeah, that's a great, great point. And by the way, beyond that, like just for everyday use, Apple AirTags are very inexpensive. You could put them on anything. You could put them on your children. You could put them in your car, or like hidden in your car somewhere. So if your car ever got stolen, that'd be a way to find your car. I mean, that's the way of the future, I think. And those AirTags, they're small, but I have a feeling in the near future, things will be microscopically small, and you
Yeah.
can just put them all over the place.
Wow. That's kind of
Yeah.
scary. That's pretty big
Yeah.
brotherish, but oh well, it saved my life. Well, I guess we've got to continue with sort of the sad news department here. Of course, the Lahaina Maui disaster, the firestorm on Maui is still ongoing. As of this morning, the Hawaiian governor, Josh Green, said that 53 people have been killed. The death toll is expected to rise. Search and rescue operations are continuing. The governor said that it's probably going to become the state's deadliest natural disaster since the 1961 tsunami, which killed 61 people on the Big Island. More than 1,000 structures were destroyed by these fires, and there are still, as I mentioned, hotspots all over the island. Lahaina, for the most part, burned to the ground. And it's the deadliest U.S. wildfire since the 2018 Camp Fire in California, which killed at least 85 people and laid waste to the town of Paradise. So, again, the death toll is expected to rise. And from what I'm understanding, there are still hundreds of people that aren't accounted for.
Yeah, the expectation with the death toll rising is related to the fact that they haven't actually searched very much of the burn, the structures. And sadly, what had happened was children were at home, parents were at work, and so there was no warning when this happened. The sirens didn't sound, and so there was no warning to evacuate. And the fires came through because the winds were so strong. The fires came through so quickly that it was actually faster than a lot of people could run. Now, young people, fit people could probably run faster than the fire was moving, but if you have an elderly person with you or an injured person, or if you have a child that needs to be carried and your elderly mother may be with you and you start moving, you have to make a terrible, terrible decision. Or there was just kids who were at home that didn't have warning and the fire came through. And so until they can check each of the individual structures, they won't know. But like you said, there's hundreds, or I've heard even more, maybe up to 1,000 unaccounted for people still. And it's just a horrific, horrific thing to think about. And there's so
Yes.
much video, of course, coming out of it with people driving their cars to escape the fire, but the traffic is gridlocked and the fire is closing in, and you can hear them panicking in the car. And so try to put yourself in that scenario and think you have your family with you and all maybe the worldly possessions that you could collect. Do you decide to get out of the car and run? I mean, that's not something you ever even considered in your life. But you're in this situation and it happened within, let's say, 10 minutes. You were happy 11 minutes ago. It was a windy day, but 11 minutes ago it was fine. And then within 10 minutes, you're in your car, closing in fire. You're gridlocked. You know there's an ocean 3 blocks away, but do you collect everything and run for the ocean? And some people did, and that footage exists as well. It's really, really horrific when you think about the details of it.
It is when you try to put yourself in the headspace of like a 6-year-old child that's by himself. It's just beyond. My heart's just hurting thinking about it. And I will say this, that there are GoFundMe pages all over the place. If you go to GoFundMe.com or whatever and just type in Lahaina or Maui fires or whatever, there's a bunch of direct GoFundMes to directly to people, you know. Now, I'm assuming that probably 85, 90% of those are legit. I'm sure there are some scams out there, but for the most part, at some point you just got to put some money out there and go, I think this is going to go to a good cause, you know. And I'm not an expert there, but I have given some money to one of the GoFundMe pages, and you know, just do your due diligence, but don't don't not give if you have the ability. Consider giving if you have 20 bucks, 100 bucks, 300 bucks, whatever it is. If you got some extra dough laying around, um, you know, this
Well,
seems like a
dough,
something that you should consider as a
yeah,
giver, as somebody who gives. You know,
cash or things. There's so many things that are needed. Babies' diapers, water, obviously. There's a lot of collection sites. I know Shane Jones, who has Jones Sea Wetsuits in Costa Mesa. I've been following him on Instagram. He's collected an insane amount of things that's going to all be put on a container ship and shipped over. So that'll take a little bit of time, obviously, but there are immediate needs that need to be dealt with as well. So the one thing that I've seen everybody pointing to, everybody who lives on Maui, is pointing to the Maui Strong Foundation, which is set up through the Hawaiian Community Foundation. So you can go to Instagram.com/Hawaiian Community Foundation. And the Maui Strong Fund will provide, quote, resources that can be deployed quickly with a focus on relief and recovery from the devastating wildfires. Funding will support evolving needs and priorities, including shelter, food, financial assistance, and other services doing critical work on Maui. The Hawaiian Community Foundation has a unique role in disaster preparedness and response. The organization collaborates with multiple partners for coordinated efforts towards community impact. It will not be collecting a fee for donations for the Maui Strong Fund. 100% of the funds will be distributed to the communities in need. So I think that's a really good one just because everybody who lives there has been pointing to it, essentially.
yeah, it's interesting because there's different levels of need, right? Like part of me, and I don't know how it works, but part of me senses that there's people that need stuff today.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure that there are emergency personnel that are taking care of people in shelters and stuff. Um, but each and every family has a unique situation where they're like, I don't, I need cash to go get diabetes medicine or what, who knows, and so on this real sort of like micro granular level, there's everybody has certain needs that can't always be met by uh, these nonprofits. And then I think on sort of a more pulled back view, there are these long term, like the Maui Strong Foundation, which are looking at, okay, rebuilding, like everything, but that's going to take months. Like, what about today?
Yeah.
Like what's going on today? Like who's
Yeah.
getting water? Now
We
again,
need
I don't
food and
know
shelter.
anything
Yeah.
about it. I'm sure it's being handled. I know that FEMA's involved. There's going to be people are going to get eventually a lot of help, which is great. But and again, I'm just kind of touching on the surface. All you have to do is a little bit of a deep dive. Do some
But
do some search on like the Honolulu Bulletin or one of the newspapers over in Hawaii to find out what's really happening there.
But I like your idea of finding a GoFundMe from through a friend who knows somebody on the island or whatever
Yeah,
because you're right. Those donation centers and the traditional methods, they all become convoluted at some point,
yeah,
and then you find out somebody's pilfering off through from the top, or
yeah.
you have to go stand in a line and wait 3 hours to get whatever it is. And so I think those things are super important and they need to exist, maybe without the convoluted part, but to be able to donate directly into somebody's own bank account is powerful. And that's
Yeah.
what GoFundMe allows you to do. So there is a family who, would prefer to not go stand in that line and wait for the container to show up. And they do need food and water today. And
What's
so
trippy
GoFundMe
is
does
like
that.
I was on the GoFundMe page and I have been for a couple of days, and there's a lot of GoFundMes that are like that are have a foundational physical address of like Alabama or Tennessee or New Jersey, and it's like Maui Wildfire Fund, and
Scary.
it's not to say that those aren't legit, because when you read into them, it's like, my name is Terry. I'm the sister of Philip. He's on Maui. I'm setting up this fund. Like they're legit, but because they're not in
Yeah.
Lahaina, like they don't have Maui as an address, you're like, okay, and
Right.
I mean, anyone can just like, I'm sure there's a lot of fraud on these GoFundMe things. Now, I'm not saying that, I don't know but for instance, I saw a GoFundMe page. Did you see that brawl in Alabama last week or somewhere where like
Yeah.
this black captain of this boat got beat up by some white guys who wouldn't move their boat?
Yeah.
There's like a GoFundMe page, and it's by like the Texas something association, and there is a picture of the guy getting beat up, and send money, and we want to raise $300,000, and there's no like explanation like, hey, this is where the money's going, this, like, it's just a picture, and they've raised like 200 grand already.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that seems odd that there's not at least some description of what this fund's about, who set it up, it's amazing.
It is amazing. And those stories of fraud have been documented. So you do want to be cautious about it. Along those lines, though, a really interesting side story that I've seen pop out of this Lahaina thing is like how quickly this turns into an opportunity to politicize the disaster and sow division,
Yeah.
you know? And I'm not sure like where you draw the line between the actual government bureaucratic incompetency versus conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Because, for example, Kai Lenny took to Instagram and his seemed legitimate. And it was him complaining that he and his friends who have personal watercrafts have organized deliveries from Oahu or elsewhere with insulin, medication, things that, like you were talking about, are immediate needs for people.
Yeah.
And they tried to get them to Maui and they got stopped by the Coast Guard and government boats. And by the way, probably rightly, legally,
Exactly.
because the Coast Guard says this is
Don't loot.
medication.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, yeah, go ahead. I'm
and-
sorry.
but this is medication. You can't just be giving people prescribed medication, transferring it from one part, to the other, like without verification or whatever it is. So Kai Lenny though took to social media and said, "We're trying to help," and the government, the bureaucracy, the wheels of bureaucracy take too long essentially
Yep.
to turn. And these are immediate needs and they're blockading our needs. Well, the great news is because Kai is as public as he is, the Department of Health cleared the flight and the Coast Guard agreed to not stop the skis and the boats.
Yeah.
And they greenlit all of it. And Kai was able to get those deliveries through immediately. And so that was a moment where it was like, it was all logical why the blockade took place. And it was
Yeah.
a logical relief that they allowed as well. But then you see other accounts. I don't know if you follow Larry Bertelman's account or not, but he's throwing up these these conspiracies that the fires were intentionally started to lay waste to the land so that the government and whoever else can come in and buy the land back from the people and then sell it to developers who are then they have this big, cabal. And it's like, well, is there evidence for that? Like, how do you jump that quickly? And then you see people chiming in about, their political affiliates and why the Democrats are wrong for doing that and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, dude, are you kidding me? This quickly went off the rails.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. And regarding the first part of your topic there, you got to understand that it is slow. Look, disaster relief is slow, but there are protocols that are set up. Like, hey, nobody gets through here, because if you just let everyone that shows up with a ski and so-called supplies, which 90% of them are like good people, want to help, but if you just don't have any, if you just let people run through there, basically, like whoever wants to show up and just start handing shit out.
Yeah.
Again, there's nothing wrong with that, and I'm no expert, but what you're going to get in 2 days is, how come you let everyone just run through there? Like, you're
Absolutely.
damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Yeah.
And these people, there's people that are experts in emergency management, and they know that unfortunately it's a bit hierarchical and it is slow. There's no doubt about it, but there's a reason for it. Like
And there
they're
is
not
probably
trying to just go, nope, sorry, we can't help people.
and there is corruption in that scenario as well, I'm
There
sure.
is. There totally
Yes.
is.
But if
There's
you
a
just
lot of
open the
ego there for sure. There's people who are like, look, I'm in charge. Everything comes through me. And it has, and it's like, okay, well, maybe that's why Kai Lenny didn't get his stuff through because your ego's
exactly.
involved.
And that's why somebody didn't get their insulin.
Right.
But if you greenlight all of it and just open up the floodgates within, like you said, 2 days, there will also be corrupt players taking advantage of the system, and it'll ultimately break down the free flow of everything, and then the walls of bureaucracy will become even greater than, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
there's, like you said, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, but I liked the fact that they were able to make an accommodation for something like Kai, because this is
Yeah.
such an unusual situation that there's no way to design a map for how to deal with it if it were to happen.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre, or so unlucky and crazy. But as devastating as all of it is to survey and to think about recovery and all that, there's no way to overstate the loss of life. Like, it is tragic, the loss of life, and the numbers that keep increasing every day are just, it's overwhelming. It's almost, you see the imagery, it's impossible for your brain to reconcile that that's Lahaina. When you
Yeah.
see what was a week ago, like the satellite imagery of what it looked like a week ago versus now, it's like, it looks like CGI. Your brain isn't designed to fully understand it.
By the way, if you're listening and you're close to this situation, certainly David and I don't have any, if all of the answers to this thing. Like I'm not trying to say what's right or wrong. I'm just saying lead with your heart. Don't lead with anything other than your heart. And usually, you'll find the right path, because there's also, there's a lot going on here. Like, there's a lot of stuff besides what you just mentioned, which is the most important thing, which is the horrific loss of life in the morning that's occurring here. There's also these other tentacles of this thing, like, should tourists go to Maui? There's some on the west side that are like, hell no. We're going through this thing that you and I, David, just spoke about. And then there's other people on the other side of the island that are going, we need tourist dollars. Like, that's how our economy lives, And again, I don't know what the right answer is, but it almost seems like it's too early to be doing having any
It
of
is.
those discussions. And, now, if I was somebody who had planned a trip to Maui, I'm not going to Maui.
No.
Until somebody invites me.
Yeah.
I'm not just going. And that might occur, I think, at some point, maybe, I don't know, a year from now, maybe, hopefully, I don't know. But they're going to be like, please, everybody, we're back. We're open. Come on over. I was
Yeah.
just there in April. I think, no, when did I? Yeah. I was there this year, and it was gorgeous and beautiful and unbelievable. And we had a great time. And we were planning on going back, maybe in November. But of course, now I'm not going to Maui unless I'm invited, unless everybody's on board that we should return
I've
as
thought about that.
tourists.
I've thought about that too, and and I've landed on the exact answer you did, which is it's too early. Like, I thought about a lot of our friends there are surfboard builders. There is a board building industry in Maui, and I'm thinking about them, and they are not in Lahaina. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. But there are some on the other side of the island as well. And I'm like, okay, they're not in threat of the path of the fire, but I have a feeling there's not going to be a lot of people buying surfboards in the next, I don't know how long, you know what I mean? Like, the economy is going to slow to a halt. And so I think about those people and their businesses and their livelihoods as well. But it's not time to,
Is
it's
Jeff
not,
and Nick? They're on Maui,
yeah,
aren't they? And
yeah,
KT.
Tim Ponies are there. KT is there. Kazuma is there. Obviously,
Oh,
Matt Kinoshita.
yeah.
So, and there's others too.
Matt
But
Kinoshita is somebody that I would take a lot of guidance from. Like he's a
Yeah,
together guy. Isn't he a firefighter or a retired firefighter too? Like I sense
I
that
think you're right. That's
I
right.
would sense that he would be able to give us good guidance on what to do, where to send monies. I'm sure it's on his Instagram. My Instagram's
Well,
just been flooded with Maui stuff. It's just overwhelming,
well,
like,
along those lines of who to follow, Ian Walsh, both of his brothers are firefighters who are
oh,
first
of course.
responders for this, and so he's a great resource. Obviously, Kai Lenny, the aforementioned. But when I'm thinking about those guys and their businesses, I landed on the same thing that you did, which is it's too soon. Like I will think about you guys and I will try to support you guys in any way, but this week, next week, there's people whose family members are still missing. And so the economics of it aren't part of the discussion right now,
Yeah. Yeah.
But there will be those secondary and tertiary kind of
Levels. Yeah.
focuses, yeah,
Right.
of recovery and
Yeah.
support and all that sort of stuff.
So we're going
But
to
I mean,
let's keep our eyes on this and just take guidance and eventually, we'll get past this first level, which is the most horrific level, I think. And Maui's going to get rebuilt. Lahaina's going to be rebuilt. And it's, it's I don't know, man. Sad, but donate. Go to GoFundMe. Find something that makes sense to you. I did. I gave some monies and I would hope that it's not hard for me to find some extra monies to put forward. And so if it's not hard for you, please consider doing it.
good call. Well, last week, one of the big stories, which I feel like has actually become an even bigger story, was Kelly in Namibia in preparation for the Chopue event. And two stories there, the Chopue event and the Namibia score. Which should we discuss?
Go ahead and talk to me about Namibia. How do you say it?
Namibia.
Namibia.
Namibia, I mean, that was the biggest swell I've ever seen in Namibia. And usually it's like one or two crews that are like on it. It's gotten to the point where everybody knows, everybody's keeping an eye on it. And when it's going to go, everybody showed up this time.
Yeah.
So we had the Florence brothers minus John, which might be a missed opportunity for John. But Nathan was there, Ivan was there, Brett Barley was there, Koa Smith was there, Kelly Slater obviously was there with Strider, Benji Brand was there. It was a who's who, and the footage that we're now, and it seemed like maybe some of the swell, like the peak of the swell, might have been too big for
Or
the
too
beta
windy.
handle.
There was a lot of
Maybe,
little bit of a strange wind on it sometimes, but I don't even think it
yeah.
matters there. The wind, it's so hollow, it kind of doesn't matter. But
I haven't seen any footage though of like the biggest days. I saw footage. Well, I've seen footage of the biggest days, but it was from the beach. I haven't seen anybody on those waves yet. And maybe that footage is being held back and it will show up. But we have seen footage of a lot of it. And I watched a clip of Koa Smith last night. It was just endless, I mean, just getting barreled endlessly. I didn't even clock it, but it was close to a minute of just kind of section after section after section. And they're all wearing GoPros now. So it almost becomes hard to
yeah,
appreciate.
yeah.
It's like it becomes hypnotic to where
Yeah.
you're like, it's crazy.
And it almost could be AI. Like you look at something like Strider's, or even at Coa's, anyone's footage from in the barrel, and you're like, I could see AI just really easily just replicating the scene over and over and over again.
Or if he even edited the clip to just run back to back, I wouldn't know when it ended and when it started.
Exactly. Yeah, that's my point, right? AI could easily take that digital info and just go, here's another section for you.
Yeah. But as it relates to Chopue, well, I have a couple of thoughts and directions, but I'll start with this one. Kelly Slater is getting barreled, out of control in Namibia. And like you said, maybe in preparation for going and surfing perfect reef pass, crystal blue Chopue. Except he showed up there. The waves are small. He got eliminated, or he didn't get eliminated, but he's in the elimination round now. He lost his first round heat, or got second, actually. So that puts him into the elimination
He
round.
surfed well.
Yeah, I thought so too. That one wave that he got was insane. Like, I feel like he's the only one who could have made that wave. But my point more is not to shame Kelly, but to say that it's a waste of these guys' time at this point to surf the CT. Like they could be scoring around the world and sometimes are. Then they drop everything to run back and clock in. But when they end up clocking in, they sit around for 2 weeks waiting for 3-foot waves. That is the norm now on the tour, is to get skunked.
Yeah, well, the good news is they're not going to be skunked here the next 3 days. It's going to be pumping, and 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 I like, and you do too, the fact that it feels like the meat of the event is going to be in good surf, relatively good surf. The next 2 days, 3 days, like this afternoon at Chopue, the wind's supposed to back down. It's going to be 8 to 10 feet, maybe bigger. Then again tomorrow, 8 to 10 feet, but good winds. It's strong wind, but it's the right direction. It's going to be windy. And I think that's a good thing. It makes it more man versus nature, right? And then the last day, if they can get it done, it'll be 4 to 6 feet. So they've got 3 days in a row here where they're going to run the event according to the forecast. And Kelly's in the elimination heat round against Ryan Callanan. And frankly, what I saw from Kelly was just what I expected. Somebody that just surfed cold, mean, perfect barreling, tough, semi-tough tubes. And now he's in this crystal blue persuasion stuff, and he's just kind of toying with it. And Kelly's been able to toy with Chopue for a while.
Absolutely. There's nobody who can as well. But I think RCal is no slouch.
Totally agree.
And yeah, that's a tough heat for Kelly.
It is a very tough heat.
Yeah, no matter what the waves are too. Like if it's 3 foot, it's a tough heat, and if it's 8 feet, it's still a tough heat. But I think you got to give the nod to Kelly, no matter what.
There's quite a few tough heats. I mean,
because we're past the cut line, right?
Kalu Vost surfs against Zhao Chianca. This is all in the elimination round.
Yeah.
Griffin surfs against another wild card, Matahi Drolet. That's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's going to be a fun event, I think, to watch. Be tuned in late this afternoon in Southern California. It'll be I don't know what time it is there. It's probably like 2 a.m. there right now or something.
Yeah, it's midday is kind of when it starts for us here.
Yeah.
Well, good. Hopefully, it would be a nice way to end the official season is with decent surf. I've got a story coming out of Surfline this last week.
Yeah.
If you would like to hear this. This is kind of a sad story as well, actually, for different reasons than the opening stories. But number a lot. This came directly from somebody who is a contract worker with Surfline, DM'd this to me on, I think, Friday. Might have been Saturday, but he said a ton of people were laid off at Surfline today worldwide. The Insider is a contract worker doing reports for his region, but ultimately he said that Surfline's website, visually as you and I experience it, will be shifting on September 1st. But he said these layoffs were related to the fact that a lot of the reports or a lot of the forecasting will actually be going away, and they'll be focused simply on cameras and reports, no forecasting. They're abandoning Bali and Western Australia reports and forecast models. It'll be going to all unedited models only. No more forecast notes or premium analysis for most places worldwide. He mentioned that a contractor in Hawaii who had been working with Surfline for 16 years got the chop. A guy who was hired 3 months ago full-time got the boot. They're cutting back forecasts and reports in California. Also, middle management is still fighting it out and expecting some people to be forced to quit. Heap of marketing people and such are all gone. The word is that subscription growth has been low in the U.S., and there's increasing expectations from the Capital Investment Group, which we talked about last year, the churning group who invested the $30 million into Surfline. And so they need to keep higher rates of returns by eliminating expenses. CAMs will keep the user base happy. And ultimately, there's no competition at this point because Surfline gobbled them all up. So this is a direct quote from the listener. He said, it's basically capitalism 101, kind of dominate the market and then up the prices and reduce the services. and then just beat off any of the startups with domination and desire for market share, or buy them up essentially. And so that's all that the information that he provided. But what it looks like to me is, if this is all accurate and true, is that the shift in the business model is related to the fact that they probably tracked the data and realized that everybody who's on their website spends way more time watching the cameras than they spend looking into the long-term forecasts and clicking on the little accordion of information to pop up and study what's happening in the future. And so they said, look, if our users are spending 90% of their time watching cams and 10% of the time reading the forecasts, but a bunch of our payroll is going towards forecasts and not the cams, turns out humans are more expensive than cameras. And so it's a effort to cut expenses, basically.
Yeah, and I don't think creating forecasts is that difficult. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think you need a lot of brain power to look at a storm. That, like, I think that even I bet it's can be done just through data.
It can be.
You know what I mean? Like, okay, here's a storm, here's the wind speed, here's the fetch area, here's, like, it's gotten to a place where you don't need, like, the Sean Collins guy who's the wizard behind the curtain to kind of be able to tell you what's going on. Like, we've gotten to a place where all you got to do is look at windy and see the storm and go, yeah, like, it's more or less, this feels, like they can nail, like, it can be nailed down to 18 seconds at, whatever. I don't think it's
Well, I've talked
brain
to,
surgery.
no, in the last year and a half, I interviewed the CEO, Kyle Laughlin, and the founder of Magic Seaweed, which was purchased by Surfline, and now he's working at Surfline, Ben Freeston. And both of them openly kind of discussed the benefits of machine learning in their business model. And so now, a year down the road, it makes sense that they would be utilizing a lot of that machine learning to produce probably more accurate forecasts and assessments than what humans were able to predict prior, especially with the cameras operating as sensors to survey all of what's actually happening in the ocean. And so I don't think this is a huge surprise. I think the one detail that was a surprise, but maybe it was just a guess from the listener who chimed in, is that subscriptions are down. Like him saying subscriptions are down, meaning growth has not been as rapid as the capital investment group expected it to be. So we need to eliminate expenses. I don't know if that's even the reason. It could be that eliminating the humans and the expenses was always part of the game plan all along the way.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it. Full disclosure, I do business with Surfline, and I've been a big fan of Surflines. I'm looking at it right now, actually, and I'm looking at the cams. And but I sense that, I don't know if subscriptions are down. I think subscription growth probably isn't up. I think everyone that's in is in, and I believe that most surfers are willing to pay the $70 a year. It's well worth it. I mean, shoot, I pay like $150 for a parking pass just to go to Cardiff Reef, or go to the state beaches. So $70 to get cams basically around the world. I believe everybody's in, and there's just not that many new surfers that are in, there's no more growth to be had. There's only X amount of surfers.
Well, what'll be interesting to see is that investment in the 20-foot plus, where they deploy camera crews to document these big swells. Are they still going to be investing in that stuff? Is there going to be growth in those kind of media landscape that we thought is the ripest for potential to transition into a new user base?
That's a great question. That's what we're going to find out, isn't it? Like, did the savings in all of this did some of that get siphoned over to really powerful editorial content, which kind of speaks to their cams and speaks to their ability to be on top of it when it's pumping?
Yeah. Well, because that $30 million investment, I don't think that their strategy would have been, let's deploy all this new this new business plan and only give it 1 year. And if it's not happening in 1 year, just call everything and stop doing things. No, I think it takes longer to see if that all plays out. So I'd be surprised if the 20-foot plus and those new initiatives went away this quickly. I think that you need to have them at play for a couple of years to see if they actually gain traction and deliver the user base that you were searching for.
Yeah, it's funny. When I was at Surfer Magazine as the online editorial director, my mantra was always I hammered to my bosses, we need cams and forecasts. And the forecasts were easy. I mean, NOAA puts out a Wave Watch 3 thing. Like the data's already there. And I know that everyone knows this. Like it's not that hard to punch out a NOAA forecast based on Wave Watch 3 stuff that comes through. And so it's really about the cam build out. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that this is probably just a part of their bigger picture. Like we don't need all of these expert forecasters because NOAA is about as expert as it gets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll be tracking that as well, of course. I've got an email coming through from a John Florence fanboy who has some suggested talking points for you and I.
Yeah.
Do you want to take a bathroom break before we get to that?
Yeah.
Commercial break?
Please. Let me
Okay, go for it.
Okay. What does it appear that I need one?
We're about at that mark in the show.
Okay, good. Good man.
Scott Bass, realwatersports.com, we always mention, but listen, I've got a listener line call. Somebody called in to talk about their experience with Real Water Sports.
Yes.
Scott, David Lee, the Adam Machine calling in from San Clemente, here to sing your praises. You guys finally pushed me to go to Real Water Sports. Went online, been looking for a Meyerhofer slip-in, which is like a weird single fin for the better part of a decade. Found one, came with a day bag, my size, came with the fin, $190, 44 I think bucks shipped to my door. Just took it out at Uppers, and it went stoked. You guys have changed the game for me. Gonna keep going back. Their used board selection is insane. I love weird surfboards. They had a lot of them. Thanks, fellas. Later.
That was like last week when Austin was in the background of our Trees Wax ad.
I thought that was his child.
Well, that one was his child, but last week it was my child.
I'm stoked to hear that that voicemail because it's true. Real Water Sports is a game changer. I just have been texting back and forth with Trip here this morning about my foiling experiences, and you can get all your hard goods and soft goods needs through realwatersports.com. They talk about customer service through the roof. Nicest people in the world. I'm a huge, huge fan. I know, David, you are too.
I am. Yeah, I was surprised to hear him. The Meyerhofer slip-in is not a board that I think about very often, but I know exactly what he's talking about, and the fact that he was searching for it for 10 years.
That's cool.
Got a smoking deal on it, too.
You did?
Yeah, I mean, that's a crazy deal, and the shipping cost, too, as well. Anyways, congrats, Animal Chin. Glad to hear that. And then finally, Scott, drinkag1.com/surf. Did you get your new package last week?
I did. I've got
okay, good.
My new package of AG1. It's part of my daily regime. All the nutrients and vitamins in one wonderful green drink that, like I said, it's part of my family's life as well. My wife and I drink it daily. I do my workouts. I drink my AG1. I do some yoga. I do some surfing. It's all a part of just staying healthy and vibrant.
No kidding. The stuff works. No reason to overthink it. Go to drinkag1.com/surf, research it on your own, see what's in it. You could take our word for it. There's so many health experts as well who have been on the program for 10 years now, Huberman Labs, Tim Ferriss, the list goes on and on. And that's where I first started hearing about it before we partnered up with them, but I've been using it now for over 2 years and we're just huge fans. So check it all out at drinkag1.com/surf. Going through that portal supports us and then, of course, helps you support your whole body vitality.
I've got a hard out. I got a doctor's appointment, so like 9:20 is probably my hard out.
Easy peasy. All right. This came through as a listener email who said, full disclosure, I am a JJF fan for many years that I will detail below, but I would love to hear DLS and Scott's take on a few observations I have made of the 2023 John Florence season. Number one, I think John's surfing with reckless abandon that we have not seen on tour since Dane Reynolds. This observation was confirmed when he was interviewed by Jamie Brissick for the Surfers Journal podcast, where John said that he's always admired Dane and his approach, and he's really been watching a lot of his videos lately. I think this approach will eventually lead to John abandoning tour, as it is difficult to fit that style of surfing into a contest format. Number two observation, John puts out the best free surfing edits of anyone on tour by a large margin. There's nobody else on tour really even close to his level of surfing outside of the contest arena. Plus, the style of cinematography, editing, and content of John's videos is like nothing we've really even seen in surfing before. It literally feels like you're watching a David Attenborough nature documentary and a crazy surf flick blended into one. I argue that no one has actually taken this approach in surf cinema before, taken it so seriously. Examples are his Vela series on YouTube, the Maps of Home movie. It's incredible stuff. And again, how many, quote, tour surfers have even come this close to putting out this level of content? Even Kelly in his heyday was not doing anything this innovative and excellent. Torrin Martin, Bryce Young, they all put out beautiful surf films that I love, but that's their sole focus. John is putting out stuff like this just as good or better, and it feels like it's just a side project for him. Number three, if you watch John's recent edit from J-Bay, the amount of acceleration he gets out of his turns is incredible. He'll do a wrap and he'll come out of the turn headed back to the whitewash with more speed and momentum than he enters it. I think that you can argue that he is matched by power, maybe, with Ethan Ewing, or maybe Felipe matches his speed. But when you combine the whole package, power, style, speed, flow, all in heavy surf, there's no one on tour who's even close to John now. Point number four, Florence Marine X is absolutely amazing. It's by far the best company started by a surfer. The clothes and equipment they design are insane. They come across authentic in their marketing. In conclusion, I would agree that we are watching something truly special in surfing right now when you combined all of those points. I think that that he is and has been the best surfer in the world for a long time now, and there hasn't even been a close one in years. Kai Lenny, come on, Scott. Personally, I would love to see him drop off tour and put out more free surf content that we can all enjoy. And that's coming from somebody who actually does watch the WSL events. Sorry for the long email, but I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on JJF's dominance in all aspects of surf. Love the podcast. Been listening since the start. Best, Mike.
Well, great email. And it really makes me mad. And I'll tell you why, because when I think about the greatest athletes in their sports, I think about, for instance, tennis, right? We got Rafa Nadal, we got Jokic, we got these guys. And guess what? We see them in the finals at every single event, and we see the best guys at their sport in the semifinals on. And it's sad that we don't get that in surfing, that the powers that be haven't given us the top 8 guys every single time in 8-foot Chopue or 8-foot J-Bay. And look, we'll harp on this till the cows come home. But until somebody figures out a format where we get to go, oh boy, the Chopue event's coming up, and I know for a fact it's going to be 6 to 8 foot at the least, and we might get 8 to 12 footers, and it's going to be mind blowing, and there's going to be the top 8 guys, and let's go. And until we get that, it feels like we've been hoodwinked. It feels like
Totally
the powers that be that run professional surfing have screwed us over. That's how I feel. And his, is it Mike? Mike's email?
Yeah.
Mike's email makes me sad because I feel like we don't get enough John in his element, which is competing in perfect, insane Sunset Beach, Pipeline, Chopue, G-Land, whatever, you name it. We get it. We get it. We've bored the listeners, but it's our job to kind of hammer it home until it happens. We need UFC level expertise.
Well, Completely. And this relates to what I was talking about with Kelly leaving Namibia to go clock in crappy surf for the CT.
Yeah.
The question is, what is lost by these guys spending their prime years on tour instead of surfing the best waves in the world? Like seeing Jack Robinson. I mean, isn't that
It's sad. I know. I laugh
it's a
because
crazy ass thing to
so
say.
sad that we don't have, yeah, that
To
they're
think of
that
to think
they've
of
got
what
to go
we
do
s-
something less than, and the less than part of the equation is the tour.
Crazy town. When we saw Jack Robinson do what he did leading up to qualifying for tour, he was surfing insane, North Point, the Box, Chopue, Pipeline, all these crazy waves, death-defying surf, and then he goes and surfs on tour, and all we've seen him surf is waist high, struggling to get past lesser surfers in waist high surf, essentially.
Yeah.
And so the question is, what is lost by all of these people in their prime focusing on the tour? What would we have gotten out of Gabriel Medina had he had the ability to surf the best waves in the world during his prime? Felipe Toledo, guys like that. And so then that brings me back to the first point that Mike made, which is, does the reckless abandon style of surfing that we all that resonates with all of us, we all love it, does it even have a place on tour?
Well, look, if that question is interesting because I think what has a place on tour is what we've already mentioned. 8-foot Chopue, 8-foot G-Land, 8-foot Pipeline, 8-foot J-Bay. Reckless abandon in those situations, yeah, it's reckless in its abandonment because the waves are intense.
True.
It's funny, Connor Coffin in his interview on Stab, they asked him a great question, which is, are there QS surfers or are there challenger surfers and CT surfers? Are those two different surfers? And of course he said, yeah, there are. I mean, to be able to do, 2-foot aerials and 2-foot waves is totally different than going up and facing, Joel or Gabe or Griffin, and that's kind of, it's just,
Well,
I want more John and perfect waves against Gabe, Jack, Griffin, Yago. You name it. Look, we know we can pick 12 really great surfers, and that's enough.
yeah,
Let's go have a contest in perfect waves over 2 days.
yeah. I mean, ultimately, the biggest and the best waves in the world are very, very, very few people live with that as their home break. That becomes, the focal point that you want to travel to and get to at some point in your life. But a lot of people around the world live in crappy surf. And so to Connor's point, there's tons of people who are great at surfing crappy surf. But if you rise through those ranks, then maybe someday you get to focus your abilities and see how that translates to the best waves in the world. And so what the WSL has done is ignore that fact and just go, well, who's the best surfer in those small waves? Let's find that out. It's like, no, that's pointless. We don't want that. What we want to see is the people who rose through those ranks, who have then fine-tuned their ability levels for the big 8-foot powerful reef passes. And let's then find out who is the best in that scenario. That's the world, the best of the best. That's the cream already having risen to the top and is now finding the new layer of cream. That's what we want.
I mean, it's, by the way, the newest race to the bottom, in my opinion, is going to be Olympic surfing. Like, when you look at the wave pools that are being generated, there's wave pools being made all over the world. And I love surfing in wave pools, and I love surfing 3 to 4 foot waves. But I don't want to see the highest level of surfing, the so-called highest level of surfing, being done at 4 foot, Kelly Slater wave pool. Like, that's not what's the top level of surfing is all about.
It's gymnastic is what it is at that point.
It's already boring me.
Yeah, totally.
Just talking about it bores me.
Well, so I think that our listener, though, to his point, makes a great point in that John is firing on all cylinders in a way that we haven't seen in a long, maybe ever.
Yeah.
And I think that Kelly Slater at the beginning of his the first, let's say, 7 world titles that he won. He was also putting out in the best free surf edits, but they were under the direction of Taylor Steele. So it wasn't a Kelly movie. It was Kelly winning the world title, and then also every year when Taylor Steele put out a video, Kelly also having the closing edit of that film, which is nothing to be scoffed at. But John is doing things in a way that I think is new and different. And I agree with Mike's email too, is that the cinematic quality of John's films are unlike anything we've seen. I mean, he's investing $2 million into some of those films, View from a Blue Moon specifically with the $2 million budget. So of course it's going to look better than what else we're seeing. But yeah, I mean, again, he's nailing it on all fronts. And the clothing brand thing, I mean, I think Florence will appreciate that commercial that Mike gave, but he's right. The clothing thing is better executed than the other surfers who have developed clothing brands as well, I think.
I absolutely love my Florence Marine X, my hoodie, my rashi.
Yeah.
That thing's insane.
Yeah.
What do they call that thing? It's like the long sleeve hooded rashi thing for long periods of surfing in warm situations. I mean, I took that to Indo. We took it to North Carolina. I took it to mainland Mexico. That was a game changer, that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's imbued with the UPF protection.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like I barely even needed. Usually, I'm just, drenching myself in sunscreen. But with that Florence Marine X rashi, that thing is next level.
Totally. Yeah, it really is. And that's what John, I mean, look, John spends notoriously 8 hours in the water a day, when the waves are good. And so you need stuff like that that'll allow you to stay in the water.
By the way, I've worn those things in the past and never liked them.
Yeah.
For some reason, the Marine one, the fit, it just like it doesn't roll up. It just feels like it's part of my skin.
Yeah, totally. Well, thanks for that email, Mike. Before we sign off, Trees Wax, we've been mentioning petroleum-free surf wax is what we've been using lately. Get it at treeswax.com or surf shops. I've been calling out 3 surf shops per show. Mission Surf, Patagonia, Cardiff, right by Scott's house. And then also, what is this? Ponchos in Pismo Beach also carries it. So find it at your local surf shop or go in there and tell them that they should be carrying it. And then also get it on treeswax.com. Petroleum-free surf wax. Pretty amazing stuff. And they'll be at the Boardroom show, Scott.
Yeah, they will. And let me tell you, the Boardroom show, we've got an incredible lineup of exhibitors. I'll quickly let you know that, by the way, the Bing dinner is sold out already. Tickets are now on sale. The ticketing page is up. You can go to boardroomshow.com, click on buy tickets to get your tickets. Exhibitors so far, including but not limited to Lost, Channel Islands, Timmy Patterson, Slater Designs, Tomo Surfboards, Dick Brewer Surfboards, Naked Viking Fins, Campbell Brothers Surfboards, Corbin Surfboards, Lightning Bolt Surfboards, FCS, Future Fins, I mentioned Jerry Lopez Designs, Firewire, Gordon and Smith, Hobie, Dark Arts, Lost Ark, Sunset Surfboards, Chris Ruddy Surfboards, Stu Kenson, Wayne Rich, Gary Linden Surfboards, Surf Tech, Rusty Surfboards, Huskaweek Surfboards, Trees Wax, as you just mentioned, Roger Hines, Andrini, Rosburn, Methless, Burn Surfboards, Harborside Glassing, Sanchez Surf Designs, Unifoil. I got foils there, David.
Good job.
Pelican Surfboards, Finjack, Accurate Planers, True Ames Fins, many, many others. People are signing up as we speak. Exhibit space is almost booked solid. And we have a used surfboard super sale that's happening that you're not going to want to miss. Saturday only from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. A used surfboard super sale outside by where the live bands play. So we got a lot going on.
Is it the exhibitors, the brands that you just mentioned, bringing used boards that are also available, or is it just people showing up with used surfboards?
No, it's one of the surfboard brokers.
Oh,
two
yeah.
or 3 of the big surfboard brokers that do used surfboard sales.
Oh, okay, got it. Amazing. Yeah. And in terms of surfboard sales, all of those vendors that you're talking about are or exhibitors are bringing the best of the best, and they're all available for purchase. Or not all, but most of them, a lot of them.
Yeah, no, many of the exhibitors are having insane deals. They're offering great deals on boards. So, hey, look, it's a buyer's market. Bring your money and get a great deal on a surfboard at the Boardroom show.
No joke. What are the dates?
October 7th and 8th, Saturday and Sunday, October 7th and 8th. And of course, honoring Bing Copeland, we got a great lineup of fun events and exhibits. Live music, Steve Sherman's War and Peace, Talk Story exhibition about Andy Irons and Kelly Slater. Jimmy Medico and Jamie Brissick are doing a Boardroom Talks. And Ricardo Rossi and Vince Longo from Future Fins are doing a great fin discussion, sort of like fin design for dummies, like me, and we got a lot planned and it's all starting to congeal.
Can't wait. You and I both will be there.
Yeah, man. Boardroom Show, the International Surfboard Show, the entire surfboard manufacturing industry under one roof, October 7th and 8th in Del Mar, California.
Sweet. We'll be there.
All right, David, what a great show. Until next time, adios and aloha.